Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
We are back with Garnett Counseling and Monica Garnett here, of course, the lady in charge, licensed in Los Angeles, California, also in Illinois, Nevada, New Jersey, and what other state?
And Virginia.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's 5. I'm sorry, my alarm just went off and it just kind of took me away. So it's Virginia, California, Illinois, Nevada, and New Jersey.
Perfect. All right. Well, let's talk about what you do as a licensed mental health professional for those that may not know to get started.
Absolutely. Well, we provide individual counseling, family and couples therapy, also life coaching.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And that you could do anywhere, right?
Absolutely. And so as far as the counseling, it's just in those 5 states.
Mm-hmm.
And so in California and Southern California, we also provide face-to-face. Everywhere else is virtual.
Perfect. And just to point out again, it's Garnett Counseling, spelled Garnett, counseling.com. And there's so many different, work that you do, different modalities, shall I say, to help people. What did you have in mind for us today?
Well, I wanted to talk about boundaries. I've just been talking about things that have really been popping up in sessions.
Yep.
And so boundaries is a huge one.
And by the way, they just sent them. I got them now. Boundaries. Yes. Session 3. I love it. Types of boundaries. Go for it. Physical boundaries.
Sure.
Thank you so much.
No worries at all. So there's so many different type of boundaries. And I think sometimes when we think about them, I know me personally, when I used to hear about boundaries, I would think first thing is I need to protect them.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know, I have to protect myself. But they actually show to protect not just yourself, but others.
Okay.
And also they're beneficial in helping us know what our limits are.
Okay.
Because I don't know about anyone else. I know sometimes in a helping profession, it's easy to just want to overstep your boundaries to make sure that other person is receiving the care that they need.
Mm-hmm.
And so even with that, we have to make sure our boundaries are set professionally and personally.
Ooh.
Oh, yeah. I have heard a few stories. I like to think that I have mine in check.
Got it. Mm-hmm.
But they also challenge us to just communicate, what they are. So, I have my line here. I call it the fence.
Yeah. Can I say something?
Sure.
I'm 45, right? I don't like fish. Never liked it. Don't want it. And I'm sick of going out with people who just try it. Just try it. No means no. I don't like it. I tried up till I was 30 because I kept feeling bad and guilty. Like I have to try. I do not like fish. Stop making the people having like even like my boyfriend. I'm like, no, like it angers me so much. And I get very defensive because I'm like, why are you forcing me? It's just even something like that. Like we know what we like, we want. Exactly. And then someone wants to come in and try to change it. And like, this can't be changed. This is not changing.
Exactly. And I think the hard part with that sometimes is when you're dealing with, I call them habitual line crossers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they keep coming and coming and coming. And I have to keep reinforcing these things, How many times do I have to tell you that I don't like this?
Mm-hmm. Oh, another thing I hate when people send me flowers. My boyfriend still sends me flowers. So why are you wasting $100 on flowers? I don't like them. My cat eats them, or at least used to be past now. But and it's just a waste of money. It's going in the garbage, and my cat's going to destroy it. But some people don't. They like doing what they do. And how do you like tell people your personal boundaries without them being offended? Because that could offend them. I don't like flowers. To them, their act of kindness is, I want to give you flowers. When I say hate flowers, that they get offended. But it's like their boundary, my boundary. How do you say it kindly?
Exactly. And so sometimes I go back and I say, I know last week we talked about love languages. Just trying to figure out another way to talk about it, to say, hey, sometimes even me personally, I'll say, what do you hate? Okay, what if I were to give this to you over and over again? And they're like, oh, sometimes they're like, oh, okay. But I do have those who are like we're talking about habitual line crossers. And so with that, it goes a little bit into the emotional boundaries where I don't become angry. I just recognize they are who they are.
Okay.
All right. I thought I dismissed. Apparently I snoozed.
Okay. Don't worry.
But what were you going to say?
No, well, then kind of emotional, maybe. I know that's part of the next one. You want to talk about information you say you're comfortable sharing emotionally with others. But also, like, I live alone with my two boys, so I don't have a much alone time, right? And it was January 9th. I had one day that the boys got picked up for 6 hours, and that was my day to put away Christmas decorations and clean my house. All of a sudden, I see on my camera my boyfriend driving past my house. And then I'm like, what are you doing? This is my day, my space alone. Well, I figured I'd come out. I'm at the local. I'm like, you live an hour away. I'm going to go to the local bar if you want to meet me. Like, totally invaded my space. And I'm like, I told you, like, did you not trust I wasn't home cleaning? Like, I like, what are you thinking? And to him, didn't catch on. And that was like, I was angry. Like, I'm like, and now I had to get up, and then I felt obligated to cut everything short before the kids came home. I didn't finish, and I went to go meet him at the bar to have a drink, but I didn't want to, but I felt guilt tripped into it.
You picked up the bag of guilt.
Yeah.
And a lot of times when I hear guilt, I ask, okay, so where was your responsibility in that?
I don't think there really is. Well, I didn't do anything wrong.
No, not at all.
Why am I feeling bad? I felt bad that he had to drive an hour out here and he wasn't going to see me.
And I feel responsible for.
But I shouldn't be responsible for his stupid actions because that's what it
was. Absolutely not.
All right.
Absolutely not. It's so funny because I look and I say, I just think about even myself, how many habitual line crossers do I have? And how many boundaries I have to set up over and over again. And not even just over and over again, even new boundaries with different people in my life and how that looks. And I'll tell you, professionally, I hear about it a lot, but even personally, I never heard of anything such as emotional boundaries. It's just like emotional boundaries. What's that? What do we do with that? But it's dealing with, how comfortable are you sharing with others, but how comfortable are you receiving?
Yeah.
And so I'm just going to jump a little bit because I was going to talk about some of the different boundaries, but I really wanted to hit on the emotional ones because those are the ones that seem to that can trip us up or trip people up the most, And so really they involve separating your feelings from another person's feelings, and who knew that we could do that?
I know, right?
That's the biggest, that's the biggest thing that I receive. I can't do that. They feel what they feel and it makes me feel the way I feel. And I'm like, wait a minute. We have a choice.
Yeah, we do. Interesting, right?
Oh yeah. And then violations include taking responsibility for another's feelings. Kind of like when I was saying, where's the responsibility at him coming and then you going to meet him? And so I'm feeling responsible because he came all this way. And so now I have to. I feel like I have to.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be the mean person. But then the question is, am I being mean if I'm reinforcing my boundaries?
You're right. No. That's also a time boundary too, which I know we're going to get to. Sorry, I'm jumping the gun. You speak. Go ahead. I'm here.
No, you're fine. You're fine. But you know what? Sometimes they do cross over. And a lot of times, going back to what I was saying, as far as I never knew anything such as emotional boundaries when I was younger.
Wow.
I only knew physical boundaries. If you invade my space, then I'm angry. If you overstep your boundaries with my time, then I become upset.
Yeah.
I feel violated. And really sometimes they're just crossing boundaries. I call them crossing fences because when I think of a boundary, I think of a fence. Yeah. Another thing is with emotional boundaries, sacrificing your own needs to please others. That comes into play as well. And then this is my favorite. Blaming others for your problems and accepting responsibility for theirs. That is a popular one. Excuse me.
Ooh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Give me some examples.
So, let's see. Sorry, I was laughing because I was just thinking of some personal ones.
That you want to share.
Exactly. This comes actually, it sometimes it happens even in therapy, where the client may say, well, if you hadn't, as far as the blaming others for your problems, if you hadn't set my appointment at this time, then I would not have missed, my schedule would not be off, and I would not have missed all these other appointments that I have. And, this is your fault.
Yeah.
It sneaks in. It sneaks in. And then accepting responsibility for theirs. Another situation is, and I'm actually dealing with something similar right now, where it's a situation, a relationship that's on the brink. And so one party is not calling the other party. They're not responding to the other party. And so instead of understanding that, well, maybe there's a boundary here, it's what am I doing wrong? And so it's often being stuck in what am I doing wrong, accepting responsibility for the other person's actions.
Yep.
When in actuality, you may not be doing anything wrong.
True.
It's just they set up a boundary, but it's hard to receive it. So they can, it's very, I wanted to hit upon this again because it's so interesting and it happens so much, And so one of the things that I have here is how to manage emotional boundaries. Just when we were talking about love languages last week, identification is so huge. I need to see what's going on. So in this situation, identifying what your own needs, feelings, and your goals are.
Yeah.
Let me figure this out for myself. I keep doing this because everything for me is, I love imagery. So I'm thinking of a fence. Let me figure out what I need, and how to build this fence around it.
Perfect.
And so, the next part is committing to letting go. Letting go of fixing others. And oh my gosh, it's like, I think about it and I'm like, how many people are guilty of that? Here.
Guilty. Yep.
Oh yeah. Trying to make sure, and a lot of times with the fixing other people, it's fixing them according to what I see, to my own expectations and my own perceptions. It has nothing to do with the other person. It's all about my emotional health and needs. Another one is saving or rescuing others. And so I have riding the emotional roller coaster of others. And I see this a lot with my couples, and friends and family members. Well, I have to save them. I have to help them. They're in a low place. So I need to make sure that they're okay.
Yeah.
And so I call it riding the emotional roller coaster. And a lot of times what I'll talk about is usually when you see your partner, friend, family member, etc., that is in an emotional place.
Yeah.
I say, stay away from the roller coaster because it's a one-person roller coaster.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you. I think about theme parks. And so when someone is on a roller coaster, I'm usually the one on the ground saying, hey, have a good time. I hate roller coasters. But hey,
really?
Yes. But hey, have a good time, because if you jump on a one-person roller coaster, there's no seating for you. Yeah. So really, what you're doing is hanging on to the sides as they're doing their dips and their loops and everything. And so once they're finished with their roller coaster, they're fine. They rode their ride, but you're frazzled.
Yeah.
So the best thing to do is just to stay on the ground and just wave every now and then. Hey, How are you doing? Are you enjoying your ride? How was your ride? And actually, that translates to, I'm just checking on you.
Mm-hmm.
Are you okay? I see you're having a hard time, but I'm here when you're ready. So that way, when they're finished with their ride, we have two people who are in a healthier state versus one that is frazzled. And usually it's the person who rode on the roller coaster. It's the person who's frazzled.
Yeah.
So, and then there's another one, needing to be needed. Letting go of, gosh, that's a heavy one sometimes.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to recognize and when in the moment that I'm acting upon what my needs are, not the other person's. So I need to first recognize that I'm acting out as far as my own, what I want for me. And I'm trying to use this need or use this desire to heal myself. And it's unfair to yourself and the other person.
Yeah.
And it kind of goes into also changing yourself to be liked or depending on others' approvals. Yeah. Well, the last one I have is taking responsibility for the outcomes or others' choices. Okay. And so another analogy I use is picking up the bag.
Okay.
And so one of our counselors, he's really awesome. I'm tooting his horn for him.
Good.
But he would talk to some of the guys, some of our clients, especially in groups, and say, is that yours? Or is that your blah, 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 blah? Or is that theirs? And so, because a lot of times when the clients would come and say, well, they did da, 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 da. And so it's assigning responsibility of what's going on. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of times when the responsibility falls on the person who's providing it, we still take it on, or we still can take it on. And so it's, who's responsible for this? Is this yours or is this not? And so I actually, because he would say, is this your stuff or is this not? And so I call it the bag, a bag of stuff. Yeah. I'm working between the lines, but
gotcha.
If this is your bag, then okay. But if it's not, don't pick it up.
Then.
Because no one wants to hold on to anyone else's bag of stuff. I don't even want to hold my own bag of stuff. No. So yeah. And that gets kind of a lot of laughs. Of course, like I said, I'm cleaning it up a little bit. But yeah, picking up the bag. So yeah, it's emotional boundaries are very like I said, they sneak in and we don't realize it because we're thinking they may be another boundary.
Yeah, true.
It may come through as a physical boundary. They stepped on my shoe. They invaded my space. Now I'm mad. Well, why are you mad?
Well, yeah.
Is it just physical or you picked up a bag? But what were you going to say?
No, is it possible that maybe sometimes people are never compatible? I don't think I've found anyone that can respect my boundaries my whole life, to be honest. That's just me.
I think the biggest thing is people don't recognize that the boundaries that are set. Well, I don't think they realize that they, the first thing that came to my mind was their habitual line crossers. I was thinking about a family member, but but they don't recognize that they're coming through with their own perceptions and their own desires and wants. And so it goes back into they have to recognize it for themselves too, that they're habitual line crossers.
Got it.
Yeah. Okay. But it's also, what do I do with this? Because at the same time, I can't control others, but I can control what I pick up. I have a choice in that.
True.
Yeah. So it's a little bit of work, but it's definitely possible.
All right. Thank you. All right. We still got some time left. Okay. So
Sure.
Talk more about these boundaries and how do we move from there? Once we establish them, then what's the process?
Well, usually, and I love to use picking up the bag. I was such a Bugs Bunny girl. So everything, like I said, everything to me is imagery.
Yeah.
And so and I'll use myself as an example. And the practice just, it would help me to imagine, am I picking up a bag? Am I not?
Mm.
What's going on here? This
True.
particular family member or friend or whoever, they're presenting their issues to me and I feel an emotional response.
Mm-hmm.
So I like to identify too, what am I feeling? What's going on here? Am I becoming upset? Am I becoming anxious? Am I sad?
Mm-hmm.
What bag am I picking up? And then I say, oh, wait a minute, is this mine? And I put it
Yeah.
back down. Or I just don't pick it up at all. And so it's practice.
So true.
It's just practice. And the more I do it, the more I'm able to recognize, even though there's some situations that may catch you off guard. But yeah, it's definitely practice.
Got it. Interesting. Oh, all right.
Yeah.
All right. So now how do you become then there's also the love languages. It's kind of confusing because if you have boundaries, then maybe you're not loving the right way, having the right boundaries. It gets so complicated for me, Monica. I'm sorry. I'm so confused. How do you find someone that has the same boundaries as you? Or do you not need to have someone with the same boundaries? You have to just find someone who can respect your boundaries. But is it true they really can learn to respect your boundaries, or they're always going to have a problem with it if they don't believe in that too? Kind of like the language of love. I'm on a tangent here.
No. You're fine because it comes up quite often.
Mm-hmm.
And so really the boundaries are for you.
Yeah.
They're not about the other person. With the relationships, the fairy tale would be so great. And I was just talking to someone about this the other day. It would be so great if we had someone who respected our boundaries, who spoke the same love languages, who it was just easier.
Yeah.
And I remember being a kid and just hearing that relationships are work. And I was like, yeah, no, if you love someone, yeah, it's not work. You love them.
Mm-hmm.
And no, it is work because just like you're saying with the boundaries, how do you find that person? And it's really it's communication,
Mm-hmm.
you know, love languages, communication. And if the person can't hear, then we need to figure something out.
Mm-hmm.
We need to come back to the table. What is a barrier to us hearing each other?
Yeah.
Because I keep yelling and I keep talking to you. And maybe he's just not receiving it. Maybe it's a different language that he hears in. And so so if that's the case, let's figure out a way to translate this.
Yeah.
I say, let's just come to the table.
All right.
And communication is so important. Gosh. And
You
if
hear
I
that?
want that person, go
You
ahead. What
hear
are you
that
going to
all the
say?
time. Communication is key. And I'm like, wait, what does that really mean? Communication is key.
Because you have to sit and be able to talk. You have to
Yeah.
come to the table. I call it negotiation time, relationship
Mm-hmm.
negotiation time. In a business deal, we have to come to the table and figure out, what are the benefits? What are the barriers?
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing with relationships.
Yeah.
What are the boundaries? This is what I want. Okay. So what do you want?
Mm-hmm.
And then, like I said, if you can't hear me and if we can't negotiate, then we need to figure out whether it's counseling, whether it's just other options of the
Yeah.
next step if we can't come to the table
True.
and figure this out.
All right.
Yeah.
And we still got 3 minutes left. Monica, what else do you want to share?
Well, I'll talk about the other boundaries as well.
Sure.
So, in addition to emotional boundaries, and I hit upon it earlier, which are physical boundaries, and that goes back into space.
Mm-hmm.
My personal space. Touch, things regarding my body.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's time boundaries. How do I spend my time? How do I prioritize my time? I think we're similar in the fact that my time is my time.
Yeah.
You know, If I'm sitting on the couch and I'm binge watching my favorite show, I don't want my boundary. I don't want that time to be invaded, Then there's sexual boundaries, and that's consent, establishing communication, rules about safety. How do I feel safe in a sexual relationship, in a romantic relationship, and sexual interaction? Intellectual boundaries, the ideas and thoughts that I have that I share. Excuse me. And then material boundaries, which I also have is financial. What possessions I have, my home, my finances, my investments, But it's so interesting to me because a lot of times when any of those boundaries are the lines are crossed, a lot of times we respond emotionally, which goes back into those emotional boundaries.
So. Now, if we want to reach out to you to work with you, again, tell us what states you're licensed as a mental health counselor.
Sure. Virginia. Why am I drawing a blank here? Virginia, California, Illinois, Nevada, and New Jersey.
Perfect. And as a life coach, though, you're able to work with people?
Everywhere. Yes. Across the states.
Beautiful. Yes. And if we want to reach out, remind us how we could do so.
GarnettCounseling.com. So that's GarnettCounseling.com. And my number is 888-427-6006. And why am I drawing so many blanks? Good gracious. Instagram at Garnett_counseling and Facebook at Garnett Counseling.
See, if you might think I'm lying, but I'm not. I don't have a lot of time. I work full-time, kids full-time, sports, everything. It's nonstop. Or else I'd give you a call. I could use your help. In the meantime, I'll get my little share every time we talk. Thank you, Monica.
That is fine.
You have a great day. Pleasure having you here. Great topic again, and looking forward to speaking again next week.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, I mean, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.